Mercedes just got caught using an engine trick so advanced, the FIA doesn't even know how to ban it. How can a power unit pass every regulation and still breach the spirit of Formula One's rules? What you're about to discover is a hidden system inside Mercedes' 2026 engine that could either launch a new era of dominance, or bring down their entire season before it begins. And here's the real twist: if the FIA doesn't act fast, every team could be forced to copy this loophole just to survive. The moment Mercedes fired up their 2026 power unit during private dyno testing, engineers inside rival camps knew something was off. Not because the numbers were outrageous, but because they were too perfect. Fuel efficiency was beyond projected limits. Deployment timing was suspiciously consistent. And the torque curve, it looked synthetic. Artificially optimized. But when the FIA ran its standard inspections, everything checked out. No fuel flow violations. No illegal software mapping. No unusual electrical signatures. Just a clean, compliant power unit. And that's precisely what made it terrifying. Because somewhere inside that engine was a system hiding in plain sight, one that exploited physics, not code. At the center of the controversy is a deeply buried loophole in the 2026 regulations: the way compression ratios are measured. According to Article C 5.4.3, the static compression ratio must not exceed 16:1. But static is the key word. It means cold. It means measured when the engine is off, in a stable environment. And Mercedes didn't break that rule. Instead, they designed components using alloys that morph under heat. At full temperature, the combustion chamber contracts subtly, raising the effective compression ratio closer to 18:1 without tripping any red flags on the test bench. This is where things get complicated. The FIA has no mechanism, none, to detect this transformation in real time during a race. The entire regulatory framework assumes that what's measured in a lab stays true on track. But Mercedes has exposed a blind spot. A zone the rulebook never anticipated. And by using it, they've allegedly unlocked a power boost worth up to 20 horsepower. That's not just an edge, it's a seismic shift. Enough to alter qualifying sessions, race strategy, and potentially the entire 2026 championship before the first lights go out. Now, rival teams are scrambling. Ferrari and Audi have filed formal complaints. Honda is investigating similar materials for its own ICE designs. And Red Bull, despite being the reigning force in the sport, is reportedly struggling to replicate the effect without triggering thermal instability. Everyone agrees on one thing: if Mercedes is allowed to keep this advantage, the rest of the field will need to redesign their engines. Not tweak. Not upgrade. Redesign. And that's a process that takes months, not weeks. Meanwhile, the FIA is walking on a regulatory tightrope. If they issue a technical directive to shut the system down now, they'll be accused of targeting innovation. Of punishing creativity. But if they wait, if they allow Mercedes to compete with this system for even a few races, the public perception will be irreversible. Fans will see another dominance cycle forming. Teams will protest. And the season could descend into politics and legal warfare instead of racing. And for Mercedes, the stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't a removable trick. It's a structural philosophy. Their entire 2026 car chassis balance, cooling, aero packaging has been tailored around the power unit's thermodynamic behavior. If the FIA bans the system late, it won't be a tweak. It'll be a reset. And with engine homologation deadlines looming, there may not be enough time left to recover. Which raises the ultimate question: was this brilliance or a bridge too far? Did Mercedes uncover a hidden frontier of performance through legal creativity, or did they knowingly tiptoe across a line no one else was willing to cross? The answer to that question will define the narrative of 2026. And depending on what the FIA does next, we could either be witnessing the birth of a new technical masterpiece or the opening chapter in Formula One's next major scandal. Inside the FIA's regulatory offices, this isn't just another technical inquiry, it's becoming a full-blown crisis of legitimacy. Senior figures are reportedly split. On one side, the purists argue that Mercedes hasn't technically broken any rule. They've simply optimized within the written limits, and the responsibility lies with the regulators to keep up. But the other camp is warning that if this loophole isn't closed now, it will spiral into a precedent no governing body can manage. Because once one team proves that performance can be legally hidden behind physics, the entire sport will devolve into a materials race. Not driver versus driver, not engine versus engine, but metallurgy versus regulation. And that's a game the FIA is neither equipped nor prepared to referee. What makes this situation uniquely volatile is its timing. The 2026 regulation set was designed to rebalance Formula One, shifting the focus toward electric deployment, sustainability, and closer competition. The goal was to prevent another era like 2014-2020, where Mercedes' power unit supremacy decimated the field. But here we are again, with that same team threatening to break open a new dominance window, not by raw horsepower but by structural intelligence. And it's already putting pressure on rival teams in ways that go far beyond aerodynamics or tire wear. This is about foundational engineering decisions about combustion chamber shape, piston material, expansion tolerances, decisions that cannot be changed overnight without scrapping years of work. Meanwhile, Mercedes remains strategically silent. There have been no press releases, no technical rebuttals, no public flexing. Just quiet confidence. And that silence is louder than any denial. Because it signals one thing: they're prepared for the political storm. They've done their homework. They believe they're within the rules, and more importantly, they believe the FIA doesn't have the infrastructure to stop them. Not yet. Not without rewriting the enforcement protocol and triggering a wave of manufacturer lawsuits and protests before the first race has even been run. And it's not just rivals who are on edge, it's the drivers. George Russell, now tasked with leading Mercedes into the next era, must carry the weight of a title campaign built on disputed engineering. Every pole position he earns will be viewed through the lens of legality. Every race win will spark debate. And for Kimi Antonelli, a rookie already under a global microscope, the pressure is even greater. Instead of being judged on talent, he'll be judged on whether he's benefiting from a controversial machine. For both, the 2026 season could define their careers not because of what they do on track, but because of the machinery they're handed. This all points to a broader reality that F1 fans know too well: the sport isn't just driven by speed, it's driven by narrative. And right now, the narrative is spinning out of control. If the FIA lets this controversy fester into the opening races, the headlines won't be about brilliant strategy or heroic overtakes, they'll be about compression ratios, thermal elasticity, and regulatory ambiguity. That kind of narrative rot is dangerous, because it pulls attention away from the racing and puts it on spreadsheets, boardrooms, and the courtroom of public opinion. And yet, there's another side to this. Some fans and insiders argue that this is exactly what makes F1 great: the battle of intelligence, the edge of innovation. That Mercedes, if guilty of anything, is guilty of being too clever. That this is no different from Red Bull's blown diffuser, Ferrari's battery trick, or Braun's double diffuser. Every era has its engineering breakout, and maybe this is just Mercedes reclaiming their place at the cutting edge. If so, then the real problem isn't the system, it's the rest of the field for failing to match it. But even if that's true, the question remains: can Formula One survive another year where the championship is decided in a gray zone? Where the drama plays out in meetings and memos instead of wheel-to-wheel combat? Because that's what's at stake. The FIA doesn't just need to make a ruling, they need to protect the soul of the sport. And with every day that passes without action, the balance of power tips further toward the shadows. As Bahrain approaches, the FIA's window to act is shrinking by the hour. Behind closed doors, technical delegates and legal advisors are combing through data logs, metallurgical reports, and simulated race profiles, trying to define the undefinable. How do you legislate a performance gain that only exists in real-world thermal conditions? How do you police an innovation that breaks no rule as written, but violates the very spirit of regulatory intent? The answer, at least for now, seems elusive. And that's what makes this moment so dangerous. Because the longer the FIA delays, the more entrenched the controversy becomes. What's currently a technical gray zone will soon become a political landmine, one that could fracture trust in the FIA itself. In the garages, every team is now second-guessing its development path. Ferrari is reportedly considering emergency material substitutions for its pistons. Audi has pulled engineers off their MGU-H retirement program just to reassess cooling balance and chamber stability. Red Bull, still recovering from their turbulent partnership transition to Ford, is racing the clock to replicate thermal expansion modeling without sacrificing engine durability. What Mercedes may have uncovered isn't just an edge, it's a direction shift. A new branch in power unit evolution that everyone now feels pressured to chase, whether or not it leads to compliance or collapse. Mercedes, meanwhile, holds all the cards. If the FIA rules in their favor, they become the undisputed pioneers of the 2026 power unit revolution. If they're ruled against, they become the victims of political overreach. Either way, they control the narrative. It's a masterstroke in strategy, not just on the technical side, but on the PR battlefield. Their silence isn't avoidance. It's leverage. They've created a scenario where every outcome makes them either dominant or wronged, and both are powerful positions to occupy heading into the most heavily scrutinized season launch in a decade. And now the burden falls not just on the FIA, but on the sport's leadership. Liberty Media, the commercial rights holders, are watching closely. The 2026 rules were designed as a showcase of balanced clean energy, equal performance, and strategic unpredictability. If this controversy spins into a one-team dominance arc, the commercial damage could be severe. Broadcasters hate predictability. Sponsors hate scandal. And fans? They walk away when the outcome feels inevitable. That's not just speculation, it's a lesson F1 has already paid for during the hybrid era's most lopsided years. The media is already circling. Headlines are forming. Think pieces are being written. Have Mercedes gone too far? FIA inaction risks 2026 meltdown. The new engine war. This isn't a slow burn, it's a flare. And once the season begins, every race result will be filtered through this lens. Every Mercedes qualifying session will feel like an experiment under scrutiny. Every victory, a potential scandal waiting to ignite. And if the FIA makes its ruling mid-season, the backlash will be ferocious from teams, from fans, and from the drivers caught in the political crossfire. And let's not forget the human element. The engineers who spent years developing this concept are now facing the possibility that their work may be labeled unethical. The drivers who put their trust in the team may find themselves defending results earned under clouds of suspicion. And the fans, millions of them who want to believe in the purity of the sport, may be asked once again to accept a narrative shaped more by legal gray zones than by wheel-to-wheel glory. That's not a technical challenge. That's an existential threat. So we end here with a question only the FIA can answer, but one every fan should consider: should Mercedes' compression system be banned to preserve competitive fairness or praised as the kind of ingenuity Formula One was built to reward? Because in this sport, rules don't just define legality, they define legacy. And whatever the FIA decides next, it won't just determine the future of one engine. It will shape the reputation of an entire generation of Formula One.